Hello, everyone. Just a quick word of welcome. Thank you very much for coming to this session. We're going to have some exceptional presenters. We'll start with radar and we'll move on into all sorts of topics that I think you'll be extremely happy to see. My name is Luigi Benedictini. I'm not going to speak in between speakers. I'll say a couple of things. It's very hot in here. So if you want to shed your jacket, don't worry about it. I'm wearing sneakers specifically for the temperature, so don't worry about it. I will only stand up to let our speakers know that their time is up. Other than that, I will leave them everything, including moderating questions. So I'm making their life more difficult and mine easier. Thank you very much. And with that, Duncan, please, stage is yours.
Thanks very much, Luigi. Just a quick word of introduction for the general audience. There's a number of people in here who do know me. Duncan McSporran, I live here in Fredericton. Started as a cartographer, being trained to be a professional geomatics engineer in the UK on textbooks that were produced here at UMB. So it's kind of interesting that I've come full circle in that context. However, I left cartography a long way behind me. Spent 24 years as an infantry officer in the British military, doing a variety of roles, right up until the point where I arrived here in Fredericton, seconded to the Canadian military at CFB Gagetown to run junior officer leadership training for the Army. Stepped straight out of that into, believe it or not, aerospace innovation, and was part of the Officer Research Services team here at UMB, running some of the aerospace and defence-facing applied research laboratories, world-leading capabilities that, funnily enough, in some cases, the Department for National Defence here in Canada is now scratching around trying to find exactly that type of capability and, importantly, capacity to advance some of its work. But then became the Regional Aerospace Innovation Director for a federally funded national programme, which was faded to black as the superclusters came into play. And at that point decided maybe it was time to set my own business up, tech innovator, and set up my own company leading in a defence-focused technology area. And then I've left that company last year, and they're wandering on their own way successfully, and set up a national defence innovation accelerator. It's national. There's a cohort currently in place here in Fredericton right now from all across the country. So 2 companies from Vancouver, 4 from Ontario, 2 from Quebec, and 1 from here in New Brunswick. And that's really my focus, and you'll get a sense as I go through this presentation why I'm talking about this. So the real focus of this is not to say we need to do things the way that the United Kingdom did them or Britain did them, but it's just to really put question marks in people's minds. And the first question, most of you will be aware of historically the Battle of Britain. And most people's imagination goes straight to what won the Battle of Britain, were the valiant pilots in their Spitfires and Hurricanes, shooting down aircraft to prevent the Germans at that point in time from succeeding in an invasion of the United Kingdom, which would have led really to the capitulation of the Western nations and the success of the Germans. However, despite the fact that Churchill identified them as the few, I just want to use that lens to start thinking about strategic challenge for Canada and navigating what we're facing right now using artificial intelligence and quantum to enable us as a nation. The myth, 1940, and I've already outlined this. Our memory and public memory centres on the aircraft, the pilots, and quite rightly the propaganda to say, Germany, you just lost. And I'm not singling out the Germans, this is just historical fact. And the fact that we presented the few, those valiant knights of the air, as being this shield against a tyranny that was represented by Adolf Hitler. The reality is that the Battle of Britain was won by an integrated system. And the backbone of that was a technological innovation, radar, that started in 1934. And it started with deliberate scientific thought. The TISARD Committee and also the Committee for the Scientific Survey of Air Defence in 1934 identified that the strategic threat to the United Kingdom was going to come from aerial bombardment. And in 1934, they had seen what was going to happen in 1940. The advancement of radar was not a technology procurement exercise, it was a governance breakthrough. And that's why this is important to this audience here. There's nobody in here that's going to go out and buy billions of dollars worth of artificial intelligence, but every single one of us in this audience is going to shape the way in which we as a nation approach the defence and security challenges that face us using the technology that we are involved in helping to develop. That framing matters. And in 1934, the TISARD Committee didn't ask what technology should we buy. They asked what is the real problem and can science help us to address that challenge that we will face. And that distinction, starting with the operational problem rather than the technology solution, is the first lesson for us as a nation today. What the TISARD Committee recognised, and this is crucial insight, is that the problem was not to invent radar. The problem was, how do you create a system that converts a distant signal into an airborne intercept, which allows a fighter jet, fighter aircraft, propeller aircraft in this case, to shoot down a bomber which is on its route to a target. And that chain was really clearly broken down into concepts of detect, identify, track, decide, and intercept. And that had to run in minutes, not in hours. It had to run in a way that was as automated as possible, given the technology that existed in 1934. It needed to rely on innovation and training. But importantly, what it needed to be driven by was an understanding of what the limits of science and technology were, using the existing people, importantly, to achieve that. So no more pointing with sticks and trying to estimate how far an aircraft was away, actually using that science to tell a human where that aircraft was, what altitude it was at, and what speed it was flying at. Canada's challenge, as we face it now in this modern era of uncertainty, and as the Prime Minister often refers to it, as an unexplored and unqualified period of time, is structurally the same. We've got powerful tools. It's AI and quantum. You know, we lead in these fields in so many different ways across the nation and globally. The favourite statistic I've got at the moment is a quantum one, and I'm sure many of you will give me AI quotes as well. 30% of the people working in quantum globally were educated in Canada. But the question is whether we're designing the full chain or just inventing and investing in that first link. Dr. Watson-Watt was one of the key people within the TISARD Committee, and one of the first challenges he faced was the fact that the people he was speaking to and the leaders and the decision makers were informed by science fiction. Sound familiar with AI? Absolutely. And one of the first things that he had to really kill was the concept of a death ray. I am not joking. In 1934, politicians were saying, right, we want the death ray that we've seen on the front of the popular magazines that existed at the time. He approached this with discipline. That discipline was absolutely fundamental. It was a discipline he could have done in later life when he went into business, rather than being a scientist and a politician. But he approached this with discipline, abandoning the appealing but impossible in favour of the achievable. And I think that really, if I was to take one thread out from this brief chat today, it's identifying what the achievable is and being able to express that to the decision makers in really plain English. And then the second component was the delivery in 1935 of a breakthrough. A very old biplaned aircraft with two engines was used to fly very close to the BBC's shortwave transmitters in Daventry in the middle of England, and with a simple converted butcher's van with an oscilloscope, the signal, which was being broadcast by the BBC in its normal business of sending out the BBC News, was shown to reflect off the aircraft, and they were able, without having visibility of the airplane, to identify exactly where it was. That was 3 people and 1 van. One observer from the Royal Air Force who went, "Now I get what you're talking about." And that was a really key point. And the civil servant that was there, AP Rowe, witnessed it and went and reported on it and said, "This is what we need to start doing now in order to face the challenge that we know we are going to face as a nation." That report was filed the same afternoon that experiment took place. What it created was the Downing system. And for those of you who have an interest in this, I'd recommend you look this up. It was technical. It was very advanced. It was beyond anything that anybody else was doing at that time in the world. In 1940, a ship arrived in the US with this technology on board it. And one of the American industrial historians, has clearly identified that was the most important shipment of goods that ever arrived in the United States of America. And it was the technology behind what became what we know today as radar. But importantly, the end state was what had been foreseen, which is that humans were using that data and that information in order to be able to prevent the threat of German bombers materializing in a way which would have allowed Nazi Germany to succeed over the United Kingdom and its allies. 4 lessons from this one as we get towards questions. Clarity of thought. Governance first, that discipline and structure. We need to have that. We all need to be speaking to each other. We need to have visibility of what we're all doing in this space. The realism. Don't oversell the technology. Address challenges that people understand and show them how we can do what we need to do in a more realistic way, but at the same time has significant impact over the way that we do business. And create the opportunity for integration at scale so that this can be deployed as it's needed, where it's needed, very rapidly on existing frameworks and systems. This is where we're at. In terms of what we have, we've got as I've indicated, we've got the world-class research, we've got the allied relationships, we speak to each other internationally, but what we're missing at the moment is that mission-first alignment. What is it that Canada needs? And I would suggest that most of you, if you're interested in this, really start to read some of the great papers which are being published right now by some of the think tanks in Canada. And also listen to what's coming out of Europe. I was in Lithuania 3 weeks ago, 4 days after I was there. The entire Parliament of Lithuania, which I'd been with some of the people from the Parliament of Lithuania that week, they were in air raid shelters responding to air raid sirens. That is the reality of where we're at in global politics at the moment. And those missing variables that you'll see there, maybe some of those are areas which we can impact in order, individually or collectively, in order to make sure that when we need to be ready, Canada is ready with the technology and the capabilities that we can deploy in order to create the effect that we need. From an Atlantic Canadian perspective, I'm a massive champion globally for what we do, not just here in Fredericton, but across the whole of the region. I'd like to single out Springboard here. Everybody looks into what we do in Atlantic Canada and say, I wish we had Springboard. Really, honestly. And I've got a cohort of companies at the top of the hill now, and they expressed exactly that point. Utilize Springboard, create the networks to talk to each other and work collaboratively and achieve that connectivity. And that's our biggest muscle that we need to flex here in Atlantic Canada: the collaboration, connectivity, and the mission-driven purpose. Don't use this talk as a metaphor. It's great. I can talk about it because I actually happen to be interested in military history as well as everything else. But look at it from that perspective as a model with those 4 key components. Start with a strategic problem, align the institutions, that's the organizations, whether that's commercial or academic that you work in and for. Test quickly and practically, but do it in a way that the end user understands. Not in a way that's good to the scientists, but a way that you can demonstrate it to people and say, this is the solution to the problem that you've got or that you know you're facing. And build for integration from the word go, not so that you can be a standalone and addressing just what you think you need to do. Start with the problem, build a system, move from interest to action. That's what I'm teaching these companies at the top of the hill. One of them's here. And we'll be speaking to you later on. And there's another 2 dedicated AI companies in that cohort of 10 companies. We've got the ingredients. The Battle of Britain was not won in September 1940, as I outlined. It was won in 1934 with the Tizard Committee. And when Watson Watt did that demonstration with a butcher's van and 3 scientists. Our radar moment isn't coming. It really is here. Almost every nation in Europe says they are already at war, and the domain that they are already at war in is the digital domain, the exact domain in which every single person in this room is sat. We need to face that reality and face the challenge to achieve what we need to do with the capabilities and the resources that we've got. So, that's a very quick count through. 17 minutes, Luigi. I hope that was good. And I'm open for questions.
I do have a question, if you will, which is, you have a room full of people, entrepreneurs, students, faculty members. Is there a call for action for us? Is there something that we can do to prepare?
Yes, thank you, Luigi. That's a great question, and yes, there is, and it's that orientation towards the challenge that we face, and not abrogating responsibility to somebody else to say that's somebody else's problem. Some of you will go, quite rightly, you will go, I really don't have an application. I don't understand how the work that I do would be in this place, because that really is that's very much the case. But there will be people in here that are thinking, do you know what? The work that we're doing in our lab, or the work that we're doing in our company, could actually apply in this space. One thing I would ask everybody to do is, you've got VimiForge up there. Look us up on LinkedIn. If you have social media accounts, please follow us on LinkedIn. We're hoping to, as we build the framework of VimiForge, we're hoping to be that sort of channel for information and knowledge, and to sort of really help people understand how innovation in Canada can really address some of the challenges that we have faced as a nation. And when we talk about defence and security, we're not just talking about tanks, jets and warships. We really are talking about national security and how we protect our hospitals, our banks, our ports, because those are the things that are most vulnerable to, in many cases, digital attack. 70 to 80% of all innovation in defence is digital. Just put that into context. When the new class of frigates destroys that the Royal Canadian Navy starts to receive in the near future, over 60% of the cost of that ship in the water are its digital or its digitally enabled systems. It's not the warship. It's how we do what we need to do with that warship, and that's the same for all of our oil systems. And likewise, the protection of our critical national infrastructure, whether that's pipelines or oil rigs, is exactly the same. So please do follow VimiForge. Don't follow me, but follow VimiForge. We've got a great team, and we're supported very much. National program run from here in Fredericton. I'll single out UMB, fantastic supporter, as is Springboard, and also the team from Knowledge Park, and also from Ignite, who I know are here in the room. Sarah's somewhere. She'll wave at me. But thank you very much.
I do have a question for Brogan and Emily, which is, what is AI to market? We'll probably learn a little bit.
Oh, please.
Sorry. Please set up while I'm doing this.
So use the mic.
Here we go. Okay, so is it getting warm at the top up there?
You can set.
So remember, heat rises, so there's some seats at the front. It does make a difference if you come down. And we do have a stream of this room, of Deneen, over in C10. So there's two rooms. There's one of the stream upstairs, and the other room has a stream of this room. And it is cooler in there, right? So it's really high quality, so you're not going to miss anything out if you want to go over there and try to beat the heat. Thank you. And we have a microphone here. When questions are going to be asked, if you could use the microphone as much as possible, just to keep in mind that we have some people over there that are going to be watching what's happening there. They'll be able to hear the questions better.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brogan Rieger, and I run the AI to Market program, and this is Emily Fenton, who is the director of ShiftKey Labs. And we just want to start off by thanking the organizing committee of the Atlantic AI Summit for welcoming us and inviting us to tell you a little bit more about our new program, which is AI to Market. So in this talk, we're going to do a little bit of more details about the program, but we're also really going to focus on the lessons that we've learned through the design and delivery of our pilot program.
So you might be wondering why we chose to work on AI to market. About a year ago, I was working with some of my colleagues at Dalhousie University in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and we were talking about a gap that we were seeing in dedicated AI startup support. Worldwide, the growth of AI adoption means that it's really changing the startup landscape. Founders can prototype faster, they can iterate faster, and their path to market can be much more direct than it has been in the past. People were starting to make money with a pretty low cost of investment. Meanwhile, in Canada, although we have really strong AI research, it seemed to be lagging behind a little bit in AI innovation and entrepreneurship. And so we wanted to help students start to fill that gap. We also recognized that a program like this could give us an opportunity to break down some of the silos that we were experiencing. As the director of ShiftKey Labs, I work a lot with computer science students, and sometimes it was a challenge to create programming that would be interesting beyond computer science and tech. And so we really thought that with the benefits of leveraging AI tools and AI education, that we'd be able to reach a broader audience.
So now a little bit more about what AI to Market actually is. AI to Market is a collaboration between DAL Innovates and ShiftKey Labs that is focused on helping post-secondary students and recent graduates to accelerate innovation, drive commercial success, and unlock the true market potential of their ideas through AI adoption. So our pilot began in October of 2025, thanks to support from ACOA and the province of Nova Scotia. And if any of you are familiar with Lab to Market, AI to Market is modeled in a similar way with the three core programs of Discover, Validate, and Launch. So the AI to Market journey typically begins in Discover, which is a program designed for participants from a wide range of backgrounds and experience levels. And Discover is really focused on curiosity, so helping to build those foundational skills and knowledge in AI and entrepreneurship, explore AI tools, and also get a better understanding of what it's actually like to build and run an AI-driven venture. For participants who then have promising ideas, they can move into our Validate program, which is focused on exploration. And a common problem that we've seen in the entrepreneurial sector is that founders will spend a large amount of time and money investing and building a project before they actually know that there's a market need for it and people who are willing to pay for it. So this is exactly what we are addressing through the Validate program. In our program, our participants are testing their assumptions, de-risking their ideas, and identifying the strongest path forward through customer discovery and market research. And then the final stage of our AI to Market suite of programs is launch, which is really focused on execution. Our participants are developing go-to-market strategies, iterating AI-first products, and also developing sustainable business models. We're lucky to be able to provide our participants with a stipend of $10,000, which helps to make entrepreneurship more accessible to early-stage founders. Another component of our program is that we're really passionate about measuring the actual impact that our program is having. So we track key competencies throughout the programs. And to give you a bit of a snapshot into the numbers that we're seeing, for our Discover program, there was a 43% average growth in AI knowledge and a 29% average growth in comfortability with entrepreneurial concepts.
Thanks, Brogan. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the lessons that we've learned. And we have been working really hard. We're in the pilot right now, and we just started in October. And we've been really lucky to be able to work on this program with experts and entrepreneurs and researchers and students to really give it life. When Brogan and I sat down to prep this presentation, we came up with a very long list of lessons learned, but we were able to condense it for you into three main categories. That is threading the needle, the need for responsible AI, and AI across disciplines. When we started building this program, we knew we wanted to create something that would be broadly interesting, regardless of people's technical background or their skill level in that area. This meant that, broadly speaking, there were two groups who were interested in AI to market. There were people who are highly technical, who were identifying problems and wanted to build the solutions using their own tech skills. And then there were people who've heard about AI. Maybe they took a class, or maybe they heard about it on the news, and they could see the potential but didn't know where to start. Now, we knew we wanted to create something that would meet both those groups where they're at, which comes with a natural problem. How do you create one program that is going to be interesting to everyone? So we came up with a couple of guidelines that we use to help us create the program that we've done over the last year. First of all, as Brogan mentioned earlier, we really put an importance on understanding the participants and where they're at the time that they're entering into AI to market. A good example of that is we're running AI to market launch right now. We surveyed the participants before the program to understand where the gaps in their knowledge are related to AI, and we were able to create 5 skills clinics that offer customized training in those 5 areas. That leads us to the second challenge, which is what happens next year when a new cohort has completely different needs and has completely different gaps in their knowledge. So that leads me to our second point, which is around limiting rigidity. So rigidity in this kind of program can be good because it creates consistency and replicability. But in the world of AI, which moves so quickly, it is absolutely fundamental to our program that we prepare to pivot and we prepared for flexibility. So we instead focused on a framework, which would then be filled in by the experts and mentors that help breathe life into this program. And then that framework we can use in years to come. This includes elements of choosing your own adventure. So students coming from different backgrounds, what is obvious to one person could be really daunting to another person. So we wanted to create the opportunity to pick and choose the things that are going to serve you the most. And then finally, we really intentionally designed for active collaboration. This meant that all the way from our Discover program, we emphasized the importance of finding co-founders who have complementary skills. It can be fun to be in a team that is all developers, but often the teams that bring the most innovative solutions and the most exciting problems are the ones that are multidisciplinary and have different skill levels. This means that students or participants can learn from each other, and it really means that they can drive forward an innovative solution. This meant through this strategy, we were able to turn something that was a challenge and certainly something we talked about a lot in the months leading up to the program into something that was really a strength.
The second lesson that we learned was the need for responsible AI. So our goal is to equip our participants with the knowledge and practical tools that they need to meaningfully apply responsible AI principles to their ventures. And there's a lot of different ideas and frameworks around responsible AI, but we chose to focus on 5 core principles. The first is fairness, which is all about ensuring that the system works appropriately across users and contexts. And in practice, this can look like regularly testing your data sets and your model outputs for bias, as well as making sure that you're engaging diverse stakeholders in the design and testing components. The second part of the responsible AI is transparency, which is all about helping users to understand how AI is used and what it actually does. So this can look like clearly identifying where AI was used in your product or service. It's also about making outputs able to be understood by your users and your stakeholders, and documenting decisions that you're making pertaining to model selection, fine-tuning, and also data. The third principle is accountability, which is about really creating ownership and designing processes for handling AI decisions. This can look like having processes in place for model failures and harmful outputs, but also utilizing guardrails and defining human-in-the-loop checkpoints. Privacy is focused on keeping user data secure and minimizing unnecessary collection. So we tell our participants for this that it's important to remove and anonymize sensitive information and also have data retention rules in place. And the final principle that we focus on is security, which is about protecting the models, the system, and the user data from misuse. So in practice, this can look like testing for vulnerabilities and also having access controls in place. So at AI to Market, we see responsible AI as so much more than just a box to tick or an afterthought, but instead as something that should be meaningfully embedded into all of our programs and also serve as a guiding principle for our founders throughout their entrepreneurial journey. And as we all know, AI truly has a transformative potential, but we're really passionate about instilling in our founders the need to use it responsibly for good and for everyone.
And finally, the third lesson that we wanted to talk about was around AI and how it can break down silos and cross disciplines. One of the things that we found really rewarding was validating that hypothesis as we went through the program. We knew that AI lowers barriers to innovation across barriers, but to see it in practice was extremely rewarding. Participants are able to apply AI challenges to the things that they understand best and the things that they care about the most in a way that wasn't necessarily possible a couple of years ago. Through Discover, Validate, Launch, we support all the way from when you basically don't have an idea to where you're ready to go to market with a really cool, novel use case. And often those use cases come from experience in disciplines that are far outside the computer science and tech space. This was validated through the interest that we saw from participants across Atlantic Canada. We saw applicants coming from neuroscience and nursing, from social work, art and design, and everything in between. And that was incredibly rewarding to see, and to be able to help those students and early career professionals get the skills they needed to apply AI was really great to see. That being said, similar to the threading the needle problem, we had an issue creating a program that was going to be interesting to all of these people. So we really focus on leading with the problems, not with the technologies. I work with a lot of computer scientists, and sometimes the instinct is to build first. And I I think a lot of the entrepreneurs in this room know that that is sometimes not the right strategy. Leading with problems and understanding them best also elevates domain expertise. So making sure that the people who are solving the problems are the ones who know them best. That being said, it is really important, and we've taken very seriously teaching AI literacy as well as tech training and technical skills, because it's important to see not only the potential and opportunity that comes from AI, building and using AI tools, but also some of the limitations and risks associated with it. That means that our participants are best equipped to apply those tools and those skills in a way that makes most sense for their use case. And then finally, we really emphasize entrepreneurial skills. These foundational, fundamental skills like communication and customer discovery are things that are going to really mean a lot to people regardless of whether they end up being an entrepreneur or not. This is something that you can take forward into your career, and so by nature, it really does cross disciplines.
So in conclusion, we just want to leave you with 3 key takeaways today. The first is that programs are strongest when they prioritize meeting participants where they're at. We really found that we saw the greatest impact when we moved away from that rigid programming and actually created flexible learning opportunities and mentorship and resources to address the unique needs and challenges of each participant. The second is that AI has an incredible ability to accelerate innovation, but it's really important that we're taking into account responsible AI principles so that we can do it in a way that is safe and trustworthy. And the last is that AI and entrepreneurship can be blended together to create opportunities for students across all disciplines and really allow them to achieve things that they might not have thought possible. So if you're interested in learning more about AI to market, or you are interested in running a program like this in your area, please feel free to reach out to Emily and I. Our emails are on the screen here, and we'd be happy to continue the conversation. But we'd just like to thank you for your time today, and we'd be happy to take any questions.
I'm also, while you think about your questions, I'm going to go a little bit off book and say that we were really lucky to have 5 of our AI to Market launch teams join us here at this conference. I won't make you stand up, but they're here in the room. If you get a chance to chat with them, you can hear about their amazing ideas firsthand and what the experience at AI to Market has been like. So I do recommend that you seek them out. We're all wearing, I'm not wearing, similar pins.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ahmed, our ambassador. Do you want to?
Oh, maybe this works. I had lunch with one of,
Good.
and the product was fantastic. He could show it on his phone as well, so that was really good. It's the fastest pitch I've ever had. Please, let's offer another round of applause. And you're staying, right?
We are,
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Now, Misty should tell us something about the dual nature of AI.
When you hear the word nature conservation, biodiversity, or even sustainability, what do you picture? Some may picture tree huggers, or maybe even hippies frolicking through the woods. And with a name like Misty, I feel slightly qualified to say that. Are there any other Misties in the room? Is there one? No. It's like, oh no. So my parents were hippies. And this really speaks to me. I use Lego people to help protect their identities. But I work with a team of conservation rock stars at Eco Advisors, and we live and breathe sustainability every day. We help advise our clients and help advise capital flows of all kinds to sustainable solutions. And we also allocate funds. Another term, whether it's nature conservation, biodiversity, or sustainability, it's infrastructure. When people tend to think of infrastructure, they think of roads, buildings, bridges, and increasingly AI and digital infrastructure. But there's a deeper layer that often gets overlooked on the books, in strategy, something that's imperative and something that we really, really need. It's the infrastructure beneath the infrastructure. It's the land, it's the soil, it's the water, it's natural systems that underpin our economies and our existence, including AI. And over the last several years, as you all know, AI has had quite an evolution. And what started out as something very digital with limitless possibilities and something with huge potential to change the world, to stay competitive, you'll notice that that conversation is now shifting from digital and infinite possibility to something that's very physical. There are constraints, and it is very resource dependent. It requires intensive water, energy, land for mineral extraction, and throughout the whole life cycle, electronic waste. So when we think of this, my goal after this talk is to help give you two things: a deeper definition of the term infrastructure, and two, how can we employ AI as an ally that can help sustain this physical infrastructure that supports it and all of us in this room. So the World Economic Forum, over 50% of global GDP is moderately or highly dependent on nature and its services. So you think pollination, you think forests, storing carbon, sequestering carbon, helping to regulate our climate. You can think of wetlands to help us with flood protection. You can think of soil for food, all things we depend on. And yes, those are environmental benefits, but they're very much services, and they appreciate in value if they're maintained well. They are infrastructure. Let's close this little box. But why should we care? It's nature. And maybe you're not nature lovers. Maybe getting out in the woods is walking in your backyard. But there are clear risks involved. Nature risk equals business risk equals AI risk. So what do I mean by that? So also, the World Economic Forum estimates that over 50% of annual global expenditures erode this very fundamental, this very critical asset. And yet we depend on it based on the stat in the previous slide. And when these systems erode, these show up in balance sheets. And I know we may not have a lot of businesses per se, but when you see business, think of your own organization. There are ripple effects, and they may appear as higher input costs, lower yields, supply chain instability, higher insurance risks, and commodity volatility. And then if you keep following that stream, it does affect AI with energy and water volatility and other constraints on the land, the water, and the energy consumption. So if AI keeps accelerating growth while eroding the natural systems that sustain it, it looks like we're speeding up a lot of the problems. But I'm not one for doom and gloom. I am an optimist by nature, and people actually call me optimisty. So if we flip this equation to one that's of hope, I like to see nature opportunities equal business opportunities equal AI opportunities. So when nature is seen and valued as a critical fundamental asset that's baked into your strategy, and again, the strategy can be for your business, more organizational wide, or a digital strategy. If nature isn't seen, then I think you should consider it, because there's a lot of opportunities attached to it, with a lot of positives, with lower input costs, higher yields, and I'll be going through this in a little bit later, but also helping us to adopt AI and scale at the increasing rate that it's going. And again, AI can be an amazing thing, and we've seen and heard some really great stories, some great use cases. So how can we think of AI as an ally to help strengthen these natural systems that we all need, as well as AI, and help us with speeding up solutions? Pathways. So more good news. See, I'm an optimist. So I'm sure you've heard of the Paris Agreement, but if not, these are global frameworks that have global targets, and this is all to help us align on reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And there's also a net positive AI energy framework that was launched at Davos earlier this year. But what I want to talk about is nature. So in 2022, I had the privilege of witnessing the adoption of the Global Biodiversity Framework. And this was a watershed moment. This was the Paris moment for nature. And it's all about nature positive by 2030. That is the big goal. And that's only 4 years away. And really, why 2030? 2030 is a critical tipping point where the whole ecological system will collapse. So 4 years to think of all of us in this room, how can we contribute to this positive trend by being net zero by 2030 with a full recovery of nature by 2050? There are targets, and that's a great thing. And one target in particular, out of the 23 in that mosaic of sea glass, is the 30 by 30 target. This is the flagship goal. If you only remember one target or one number, I want you going to bed. Number 3. So this is to conserve 30% of land, oceans, and seas by 2030. This is our infrastructure. It underpins everything. And strides are being made. So you'll see that we're boosting nature positive flows to help reach that goal. And those are, if you think of nature positive flows to regenerative agriculture, to deforestation-free supply chains, those are all good things flowing in the right direction. But we also need to redirect the negative nature flows. And you'll see there's quite an imbalance here. And to illustrate nature negative, I just want to warn you, so there is a bit of doom and gloom here, but optimisty will return soon after. So to help illustrate the nature negative, if we look at headlines that I'm sure you've been seeing and hearing with the fossil fuel disruption in the Strait of Hormuz, is there's an interconnectedness between fossil fuels and food production. And if we break down this complex system and try to structure it across the value chain, you'll see that upstream inputs, almost 50% of the world's food production is dependent on one primary input: fossil fuel-based fertilizers, synthetic fertilizers. If we go midstream, on the logistical side, 1/3 of global fertilizer trade is being blocked right now because of the Strait of Hormuz. And downstream, we're feeling it, aren't we? Food inflation, 45 million people, additional people, are at risk of starvation, let alone high cost of fuels and struggles for the agriculture community at large. So if this isn't like a global kick in the pants to care, I just hope that you'll see how we can flip this around and try to use AI as an ally for a global challenge that affects us all. And you can swap out the global system, this one's in particular just for food, with another system, with something that you're working on. But how can we look at this and rethink the infrastructure, those natural resources that have a nature positive goal? And if we can use AI to help make better decisions faster, we can optimize, model. I know we have the AI experts in the room, but how can we look at different inputs, ones that are nature positive? And one of our clients is, it's called Carbon Wave, but they manufacture a biostimulant for agriculture, and they don't use any fossil fuel inputs, but where that ingredient comes from, it's from seaweed that otherwise would be decaying on the beaches of the Caribbean, causing an eyesore for tourists, for hotel operators, and they collect that, they transform it into something that produces and increases yields by tenfold for farmers. So solutions like that can have ripple effects, and AI can help us look at inputs in new ways that are already thinking of downstream, something that's not leading to starvation, something that has a positive future. And other opportunities with the residual of the seaweed, it's bioplastics, it's emulsifiers for cosmetics. There are so many amazing use cases. And if we could take a similar scenario like that and look across disciplines, across sectors, and find replicable opportunities that we can start at the beginning, because starting at the beginning is where we have the biggest and the most long-term impact. And then the rest of the value chain becomes a lot easier. There's less dependence, there's less reliance, but you're building in resilience. And that's the key thing. You're trying to have a business that's resilient. You want to be able to use AI in the future and have that resilience baked in. So along the value chain, AI can help improve efficiency, optimize energy, look at renewable options. Again, solar and wind don't have to go through shipping channels. Having your own source of energy locally is a win, but it's an opportunity to look at different options that have a nature positive versus a nature negative. And then downstream, there's more value for money because the inputs costs were less. Consumers get to experience those benefits. You can customize personal service. Lots of pluses. And maybe while not even knowing it, you're also contributing to the global biodiversity framework targets. Not just number 3, protecting our critical infrastructure, but being able to integrate your findings, biodiversity into all decision-making, helping reduce business impacts. You can strengthen capacity building, what this session is all about, and ensure that data that you've collected is shared so it can scale and multiply for good. So we have choices. We can accelerate growth while eroding natural systems that sustain it and us, or we can do more good and less bad by boosting nature positive flows and redirecting the negative ones. Because in the end, whether you're a nature lover or not, nature underpins our economy and existence, including AI. Great. Do we have time for questions?
If there aren't any questions, I have one quick question,
Okay.
which is, there's strategic choices, of course, but what about personal choices in the home? Is there something we can do?
So what I say is whether it's a personal choice or a business choice, there are decisions that we can all make. And I feel like once you know your key dependencies on nature and what are the risks to nature, you'll look at everything much differently. So in my personal life, even just planting my own garden, I'm not being dependent on others for other inputs. But I feel there's business for nature has a step, an ACT process that's called assess, commit, and transform. So any small actions that you can identify that can help have a regenerative circular economy bent, and that's the future that we're going for. Even Like once you can identify, like I don't buy new clothes. I go to like Salvation Army or like other circular economy models, but that's just one choice. And it's looking across the whole value chain of what I can do to keep a circular economy and that mindset always top of mind.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to ask Josh to start talking about the wonders of Fredericton's innovation.
All right, so this presentation is not about AI, but I did use AI to help me generate the title. So that's how creative I am. From momentum to movement. So what this means to me is in New Brunswick, we have a lot of movement. Shit, that's backwards. We have a lot of movement. Freaking AI. Always check your work. And it's about how do we move from movement to momentum? You know, we've got a lot of movement, we've got a lot of cool stuff going for us, but we need to build the momentum behind this region's next sort of iteration. So that's what I want to talk to you about today. It's not a pitch. So I'm with Knowledge Park. I'm going to talk very little bit about Knowledge Park. I'll give you a little bit of context, though, for why I'm here and who I am. But this is not a pitch. I do have a request for you at the end, so hold tight. Don't go to the other room. It's nice in here. So who is this guy? Little personal story. I grew up in New Brunswick, born in Shediac, Francophone background. We are a minority-speaking population, Acadian, proud Acadian. You can't probably tell that by my last name, Waite, but that's fine. My mom was a single mom, put herself through university. I was at the daycare at Moncton for years. We moved to Fredericton. I grew up here. I love this place. People talk about leaving. People talk about opportunity outside of New Brunswick. I refused to believe that. It wasn't easy. I also may have taken a few left turns, had a son at 18, myself became a single parent, had to stop my university degree. That made it challenging in a province that's predominantly led by a public sector that requires a post-secondary degree. But I always had a sparkle in my eye for public sector, for doing good for public good. My mom was a public servant. I eventually was given the privilege to join ACOA. Someone there really believed that the barrier that was put in place by that requirement wasn't just, and I benefited from that. They also supported me in doing finally my post-secondary degree. I did a master's during the pandemic, and here I am today. So I feel privileged to stand here and share that story and share a little bit about what I've been working on or what I've been discovering about this region. Oops, I forgot to tell you about Knowledge Park. So Knowledge Park is actually a set of buildings. Sorry, Misty, infrastructure. We are on UNB land. We are in the UNB woodlot. Sorry again. But we're gonna take, we're gonna start developing. We're gonna take care of the land that we're on. And but long story short, Knowledge Park is a set of facilities that really believes in clustering companies and capabilities. And why I mention that is because my commitment to this region is using those facilities to be the connective tissue and the sort of translating layer to the challenge I want to talk to you about. And I hope some of this rings true to some, well, hope, maybe that's a loaded word. I think this will ring true to you. So the work that we perform, I've been about 118 days in my role at Knowledge Park as Chief Executive Officer. The goal of my last 90 or so days was to have as many conversations with people inside and around the province, outside of the province. And instead of asking, what do you think I or Knowledge Park should do, the question was, what's working well, but better yet, what's not working well in New Brunswick? And I used AI to help me interpret these results. Had somewhere between 60 and 80 of these conversations in the last 90 days. And when somebody asked me in one of those conversations, they said, geez, usually people hire a consulting firm to do these sorts of interviews and this sort of data gathering. Why are you doing this? It didn't even occur to me. The process was so beneficial to me, so rich, to be able to sit down with leaders, entrepreneurs, students, and hear their story of what makes New Brunswick special and what makes New Brunswick challenging. 3 things. Fragmentation. That's a big one. We have incredible assets. We have incredible capabilities in New Brunswick. The problem is they're fragmented. What I mean by that is that they're under-coordinated, they're under-leveraged. And the ugly side of that means that people don't collaborate in the way that we should as a small jurisdiction. The second thing, and related, is that the positioning of our jurisdiction is cheapened by that fragmentation. It appears less investable. The narrative is difficult to repeat because we love to talk about how access is easy, how we know one another. But in reality, when we execute on that, we don't really collaborate. We tend to fight for the same dollar, which is understandable for a province that has limited resources, right? But that's about to change. The third thing that was missing that people identified, and this was honestly, of the 80 or so conversations, probably 78 of them were identifying these 3 structural challenges: pathways to scaling ideas, people, knowledge. Structural effectiveness. We have a difficulty as a region, and this is common across many regions, by the way. I'm not trying to pick on New Brunswick. Translating capabilities into outcomes. So research, credibility, talent, companies, they're here, they're all here. But when it comes to growing those capabilities, attracting, transformative investment, risk capital, retaining our talent, those outcomes are really difficult to achieve thanks to those 3 structural challenges. So my commitment, or rather Knowledge Park's commitment, if I get my way, which I guess I will now that I'm CEO, our role is not going to be to own the ecosystem, okay? That's not what it's about. We're not trying to control who gets to come to Knowledge Park. We're not trying to control the conversations. It's really to help those capabilities become visible, become usable, and productive. And I'm not going to pitch you on, why to come to Knowledge Park or whatever. You're welcome to, ask me why later. But I do want to share with you what this means in practice for me and the behavior you can expect from us as an organization going forward. Number 1, it's about making the system easier to navigate. So I mentioned that translating layer. Understanding what are the trends, what are the signals that we're getting from emerging sectors or things like, this transformative growth that's going to be in our backyard with Base Gagetown and the modernization of how we defend Canada. So I like to call it a clearer front door, stronger relationships, and better visibility of what makes New Brunswick strong. The second commitment is to make the story easier to understand. So you're going to see us in the next month or so, 4 to 6 weeks, come out with a stronger narrative. And my ask to you is to watch for that narrative and repeat it, please. Get with me and tell the story of why this is a special place, why it's investable. So sharper positioning around our credible strengths. And then the third is to make growth easier to support, right? So clearer pathways for companies to collaborate, to access capital, clearer pathways to connections to research, partnerships, those sorts of things. Oh, shit, I went too fast again. Well, New Brunswick needs more of its capabilities translated into durable outcomes. That's, I guess, a bit of a pitch, but I want to leave you with that thought. In closing, like I said, it's not about becoming something else as a region. It's about becoming more deliberate about how those existing strengths are produced, are protected, are evolved. We do have real innovation. That's what makes me so excited about being in these rooms and hearing all the different talks. But I have to say, capability doesn't come automatically, right, as outcomes. It really has to be deliberate. We have to look at, the future and how we get there together. So that's what I want to leave with you. The next chapter, the next phase of this region, I truly believe it's about addressing those those problem statements earlier, right? Reducing fragmentation, sharpening our positioning, and building clearer pathways. That's it. Questions? How are we on time? We're good. No questions. Fuck, amazing. All right.
Well, there is perhaps one question that I could ask, if you don't mind.
Of course.
What is your time horizon for this call to action? When should we really do things?
I'm an incredibly impatient person. And I've been, if it's fair to say, I've been in this sort of like economic development space now for coming on 12 years. I have firsthand felt the structural problems and struggled to push my way through it, both as a public servant and as someone who likes to innovate on ideas. My time horizon is like yesterday. I'm over it. So you're going to see us come out with this, not a marketing campaign. It's going to be strong narrative, storytelling. That's impact to me, not KPIs, right? So I hope that's a fair answer. Yes, perfect. Thank you.
So it's an interesting question from Luigi, because I'm going to end my talk with a call to action for Monday. Some of us are keen. We might start today or tomorrow. So I've been asked to come here and talk about AI and capability building, because for the last 15 years, and especially more recently, I've been building capacity in AI. So my name is Robin Stewart. It wasn't originally on the agenda, so I'm being disruptive by being here right now. I lead healthcare and public sector AI and digital transformation for a company called NTT DATA. NTT DATA is actually the world's largest IT professional services firm by revenue, but not by popular talent size. It's the third largest operator of data centers, and if you've ever used a Google product, your data has gone through one of our data centers. I'm really excited to have just joined NTT literally this week on Monday, because following from Misty's conversation, NTT has a bold vision for 2040 to be, as a company, net zero. But for their data centers, the date is 2030. So we're really excited about that, to be a leader in sustainability. So I have been brought onto the NTT team because I'm known for being an intrapreneur, a disruptor, and a very fast learner. I'm here talking to you not about NTT, but actually about my own personal journey with AI, hoping that that will help you with yours. So I want to start with a small confession. I've spent 15 years working with clients on digital transformation of some sort. Health systems, governments, highly regulated industries that want to adopt technology. And the single most common question is some version of, what can this stuff do for us? I think it's the wrong question. It's the wrong question, at least for AI, and it's the question that's quietly responsible for decades of pilots quietly going nowhere. And instead, I think we need to be asking something else entirely. So here's my claim. Whatever questions you came here with, they're probably not the right question. But for those of you who guessed the question, bravo, you are at the forefront of AI. The question that actually determines your future is this. Not what AI can do. Apparently, out there. Not what AI can do, But what would have to be true for AI to actually work for you, for your organization, and for users? And I mean really work, not just like a pilot or a proof of concept that dazzles board members or committee members, something that quickly dies. We want impact for real users. Because here's what's changing. This question suddenly has teeth because we're moving past generative AI, which we used as a tool for the last number of years, into agentic AI. And agentic AI actually gives us a new workforce. And that changes the job of everybody here in this room today. Generative AI. This is the stuff most of us been tinker with. Some of us have been truly adopting it and using it, integrating it into our daily lives. It is a creator. It turns data into drafts. You ask it, it produces something, and you stay in the loop on every single step. It's a brilliant tool, but it is a tool. So the shift is towards agentic AI, and that's the doer. So autonomous, outcome-oriented agents that don't just draft an email, they actually work on the whole queue. They plan, they execute, and optimize in a closed loop, and they only escalate exceptions to a human. It's not just a faster tool, it's a junior team member, and you're now an AI boss. Now, the honest part, because I'm not here to sell you on the hype, fully autonomous agents aren't going to take your work tomorrow. Today, they are narrow. The runway is short, though. Gartner expects that 40% of enterprise applications will use these kind of agents this year, in 2026. That's up from 5% last year. So your window is essentially the next 12 to 24 months to position yourself, which raises the question, how do you get ready? So being AI ready isn't actually a tech stack. It's a leadership test. It's not mostly a technology problem. The rule of thumb, as BCG coined the 10-20-70 framework, and NTT Data strongly backs that. We worked with 2,500 senior leaders, and we came up with the same results. And that is that the value of any transformation breaks down like this. So only 10% is actually the algorithms, the models, the machine learning, the data science, the part that everybody's currently obsessed with. It's the tip of the iceberg. The 20% is the data and infrastructure. In this case, I do mean technology infrastructure, but great point, nature as well. But it's that clean, structured, interoperable data, secure platforms, the unsexy stuff that you never went to a ribbon cutting for. And this 70% is the decisive mass below the waterline. It's the people, it's the process, it's the leadership. That's culture, that's change management, that's business model reimagination, and that's workflow redesign, but most importantly, it's talent. And it's appropriate that we sit here today, as Ottawa just released the AI strategy this morning, with a huge focus on how Canadians have to avoid being left behind. So this leads me to my favorite and least comfortable truth of all of these. AI is an honest audit of your organization and your own personal skills. It's the most honest audit you've ever had. You can't bolt an agent onto a broken process and get a good outcome. You just get a faster broken outcome. The moment you put AI into real work, it finds every gap. Gaps in your data, gaps in your decision rates, gaps in your process and your talent. It's brutally honest. But here's the hopeful part. We already know what good looks like. We know it's about interoperable data. We know it's about procurement that doesn't strangle delivery and decisions that are made by people who are closest to the work. We know that leaders have to build the conditions instead of managing approvals. This isn't a mystery. So the real question isn't, what should we adopt? It's who's going to do the unglamorous work of building those conditions. And the answer, hopefully, is everyone in this room. So let me tell you a bit about what good actually looks like by the research. So I said we already know what good looks like because we do have data. NTT Data conducted research on 2,500 leaders, and the ones pulling ahead share 9 habits. And I won't read all 9, but you'll notice by the colors that the green are led by individuals, the blue are led by employers or organizations, and the orange are led by policymakers. Almost everything is actually organizational. How employees and policymakers run the place. Aligning AI strategy, building secure and sovereign foundations, focusing on high-value use cases, reinvesting early wins, rebuilding core systems, and governing for scale, as well as partnering for growth. Pay special attention to number 4, expert-first AI. That means augmenting your best people. And number 6, change that sticks. These 2 run entirely on talent. That's the individuals that the employers and educators are building. So these aren't a vendor checklist. You can't go out and just buy them. They're a destination. And the reason these leaders already see payoffs in terms of higher revenue and margins is that they built the conditions of all 9. Together, which brings us to the obvious question. What do you do on Monday? Where do you start? So each of these habits need to be started Monday. That's my challenge to you. So individuals, this is for all of us. If you're here as an individual wondering how you can stay relevant, your job is shifting. It's moving from doing tasks to directing, checking the work, and judging the work of an agent. You don't get there by a course, although courses are still important. You get there with reps. You actually have to use AI in your daily work every day and double down at what AI can't copy. That's your judgment, your domain depth, your ability to connect the dots across silos. So your Monday action is just take one task that you do every week and try to do it with AI and write down exactly where it breaks. And that's your development plan. So that speaks to habits 4. Expert-first AI, lived out one person at a time. So employers, if you're a leader, start with the conditions, not the models. Pick one high-value workflow and ask, what would have to be true for this to work for our users? Put one named person in charge of AI and make them be on the hook for it. Fund the 70%, culture, talent, process, and don't forget change management, as a real line item, not an afterthought. And be deliberate about whether you build, borrow, and buy talent. Don't outsource your mission, but partnership is powerful. Dependency isn't neutral, it's a power relationship, and sovereignty is about choice and about talent. Policymakers in the room, if you shape policy or if you're a budget holder, this moment of political attention is the best moment in a generation, the best chance to actually fund the boring fundamentals, because we have to. Pay for the interoperable data, fix procurement so it doesn't strangle delivery, and treat technology sovereignty as what it really is, a choice and a staffing decision. The question isn't whether you own your own data centers, it's whether you could operate if your key vendor walked away tomorrow. And educators, if you're an educator or a research or you're building talent of the next generation, you are building talent for the jobs that don't even have descriptions yet. You have to teach the blend, technical skill, business and policy judgment in every graduate. Embed AI fluency across all programs, not just computer science, and stand up micro-credentials for the early and mid-career professionals who don't have 4 years to go back to school. You are the partner in number 9. This is the most urgent in the sectors that I work in. So I work with health and public service. It's where the back office, the case triage, the eligibility processing decisions will be replaced by agents first. And it's the last place we want this to go badly. So everything I said comes down to one move that every leader in this room has to make. Be your own client zero. Probably heard of patient zero, where every disease starts. Well, you're client zero. Before you roll out AI to your team, to your department, to your clients, to your students, be the first test case yourself. And I can say that because I've done it. So first, it started for me a decade ago, long before AI was on my business card. I was a change manager on a federal food inspection modernization project. We digitized how the products got permitted, licensed, and inspected in Canada. That's where I learned the lesson behind this talk, which is that you can't bolt technology onto a business that won't change. So when AI arrived, I made myself the test case. I did research, I started hands-on experiments, I did go for formal training and credentials because they are important, and then I started building my own agents and managing them. Then I turned that into a capability. So my previous employer was facing its own disruption. So I founded an AI experience lab. It was our own internal corporate client zero, and the practice that would take our clients through their first AI projects. It went from a whiteboard sketch to a large national delivery center for AI right here in the region. And that's what I do now. I help organizations across health and public sector adopt AI at scale without repeating the mistakes that I got to make. So that's the pattern. You don't earn the right to lead this journey with strategy decks. You have to earn it by taking the journey yourself first and then paying it forward. So I could give this talk anywhere, Toronto, London, or Singapore, but why does it matter here in Atlantic Canada? Because in a lot of places, these 4 groups, educators, employers, individuals, and regulators or policymakers, they can't even get into the same room because of bureaucracy or other reasons, scale. And here we're small enough to actually get us all in the same room. That's not a disadvantage, it should be our biggest advantage. If we move 4 separate groups through the agentic shift by themselves, that's something that will happen to our workforce. We will be left behind. But if we move together, individuals committing to learn and lead, universities building the talent that employers need, employers signaling the demand, and government funding the foundations and clearing the procurement path. The same shift to agentic becomes a regional advantage, and we can punch above our weight. We've done it before. So I'll leave you with the same refrain I opened with. Stop asking what AI can do. The tools are coming, they're coming fast, and they're going to be extraordinary. They already are. Start asking what would have to be true for them to work. and then go be the person who makes it true. Don't wait for the perfect platform. Go build the conditions. The tools will be there when you're ready. Thank you.
I'm afraid that unfortunately we don't have much time for questions, but I would ask you to connect with Robin at the break, which is exactly happening now. First, I would like to thank, of course, all of our presenters, the AV who did a fantastic job for all of us, and of course all of you for being here and braving the heat of this room to listen to some fantastic presentation. Thank you, and see you soon.